This is a podcast or something like that.
Hey, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to episode 101 of the Verbal Journal podcast here on What's Therapy Corp Airwaves. That's a new thing I have to plug, apparently. Welcome to the public. This is a public episode. Last episode was episode 100. It was a very special episode. We did a big celebration. I buttoned up a white shirt, you know what I mean, for part of it. I wore a necklace. This was like a whole, we talked all about, all these different things. Lots of progress on the podcast in general, so I'm excited about this. Welcome to the pub. We have a lot to talk about. We're not going to spend time talking about the last episode. I've learned my lessons. If you've seen previous podcast episodes, sometimes we get way too caught up in the past. So don't even worry about that happening. I know some people are probably already very worried about that happening, and they're like, it's happening. But no, it's not, and it won't. Because, boy, there is a lot going on, I will tell you, and there's a lot I like to talk about things that are going on. I will, one really quick thing about last episode, and you know what I mean? Only one, but, the whole thing about, we're going to get our previous staff member, Reginald, the data guy, to reach back out by doing a whole episode about his favorite subject, data. It's just a quick update because I would feel bad leaving you hanging. So far has not worked. Enough about that. Just another thing so we had the post here. I'm trying to do a good job here promoting everything. So I have to do everything on this podcast. You're watching this now. Maybe you've never seen the podcast before. Maybe you've seen it before. And you're thinking, wow, he's doing a good job, right? Well, thank you, first of all. And I do have to do this all on my own. I'm doing everything about it. I even promote it here on my YouTube channel. And that's part of why they hired me for the podcast. Because I would do this. So I do this, and I decided finally, and I've mentioned this before that I was planning to do this, promoting it in a poll form, because we're having a problem getting, views and stuff. Like, previous, post, you get that's for the members here, 7, and I'm one of them, you know what I mean? So 6. Sometimes you don't get a lot of views on posts. And it's like, YouTube, what the heck? So I decided to make it a poll because I thought, okay, everyone likes voting, right? Except like 90 million Americans. But mostly everyone likes voting. So if you make it a thing where people can vote, then you make it something where they're attracted to it and enticed to it. So, I let people express themselves, and I promoted the podcast at the same time. And it got, 100 votes. So, that's a good amount of views. Not a ton of action from it, I don't think. But, a few people probably checked out the podcast. Now, I did forget to mention, I had meant to mention that I had just I want to promote the Patreon and the YouTube members thing. So I forgot to mention that, like, the day before, I just uploaded a 2.5-hour video of watching Bill Maher and Jordan Peterson have a fascinating intellectual dialogue while I played chess. And then, which, by the way, I just did another 2.5-hour video. I just uploaded it an hour ago. This is for patrons and members. So you can get that if you want. Oh, I showed the link on stream. Oh, I'll have to blur that out. Yeah, the link was blurred so I can maybe have people give me money. Okay, so I enjoyed talking. That was like I just uploaded it like an hour ago. So here's the Jordan Peterson one from last week was really fun. And then the Michael Knowles one from just this morning. I uploaded it. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun analyzing this. But yeah, back to so I did this promotional post, right? And I unfortunately forgot to mention both that extra stuff I'm posting, which is meant to entice people, and someone had to comment that they're a little bit annoyed there's no public episodes, and I was like, yeah, there are public episodes, and I totally forgot to mention that. So obviously there's public episodes That's the whole point, is that I'm supposed to promote those. So anyways, the marketing department was very mad at me, and Tom, I'm sorry. I'll say it on air, Tom. I'm sorry. I think Tom has issues accepting apologies. You know what I mean? So anyways, one thing we're going to get into right now, because it's enough dilly-dallying, is let's talk about the Oscar. It's Oscar season, everybody, and by the time you see this, the Oscars will probably be about to happen. So who do you think's going to take home the golden statue? That's the big question in the air. And I will tell you, as a media analysis YouTube channel, you can be sure of one thing, which is I have so much knowledge of all these movies, and I could just talk at length about all of them. I have deep analyses to share. For example, let us go through. Let's start with the most important category. Oh, they alphabetize the categories. That's a good idea, actually. Okay, so what is the film one? Best film or whatever? Is it a B for best film? Nope. What? How do they phrase it? That's one thing I do not know. I feel like there should be like a best film. Film? Is it just film? No. Best picture. Okay, I thought it was alphabetized. Oh, because they can't just say picture, and because everything else best is implied, but for some reason best picture is not implied. Okay. So Anora, I did not see that one. That is the one I did not see. The Brutalist, I also did not see, and don't know anything about. A Complete Unknown, I didn't see, if I'm being fair and honest. Conclave, I've never even heard of. Dune Part 2, I didn't see also. Amelia Perez, I have not heard of or seen. I'm Still Here, I've heard of, but I actually have not seen that one either. Nickel Boys, I know Nickelback. I don't think it's the same thing, and I haven't seen it. The Substance, I've heard of, and I could tell you... No, I don't really know anything about it, but I've heard of it. Wicked, I've definitely heard of. I did not see that either. So unfortunately, it doesn't... I was wrong. My mistake. I actually don't know any of the films. I just didn't... I don't see... I'm not a big film guy. Like I said in the... I guess in the Breaking Bad video and some other videos, like when I'm like, I don't really watch a lot of dramas. I also don't really watch a lot of films. I don't really watch a lot of TV these days. I do just enjoy YouTube videos, and I, read like political stuff, and I do art, and I hang out with friends. But I want to see more films, and I was seeing films with friends. I talked about it on the podcast. We had some great discussions of some films I saw. What was that weird 90s comedy? And then there was like a 1960s like Czech movie. There were all kinds of cool, interesting. So I'm trying to see more movies. Feel free to leave your recommendations for films in the comments. I have a list of films I've been wanting to see. So but no, these I have not seen. Which do you think is going to win? I think Dune Part 2. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, I haven't seen any of these films. It's ridiculous for me to say anything. I mean, I know people like Dune, but is it really best picture material? Like what the heck is going on? It's sort of I don't know. It's sort of like how people joke that the Major League Baseball calls their tournament the World Series, even though technically it's just American baseball teams. But you could say it's the highest performing league. I don't know exactly how you measure that, but it is funny to be this is the best picture, and we're super limited in what we're considering to be eligible, I feel like. But anyways, so there's probably other film fests that are more important in some sense, but congratulations, everyone. It's all the same movies, you know what I mean? There's no new ones for any of them. Gladiator 2, that sounds cool. Hopefully they get a good one. Nosferatu, I've also not seen. I don't know that I've seen any of these. Magic Candies, have not seen. In the Shadow of the Cypress, have not seen. Wander to Wonder, I like that. Nope. Yuck. No, I haven't seen that. Wild Robot, no. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. That sounds dope. I haven't seen that. Memoir of a Snail, nope. Inside Out 2, no. I did see Inside Out 1 though back in the day. It was good. I think it made me, feel something. Flow, I have not seen. Zoe Saldana, sorry. That's a person. That's not a movie. But I have not seen that person either, frankly. Adrian Brody, have not seen that person. I mean, I've seen him in other stuff, I think. Was he in like something? I don't know what he was in. None of these. I haven't seen any of these. I don't know that I saw any of these movies. I haven't seen any of these. Just wanted to give some of my expert analysis on the films that are up for the Oscars. So, go ahead and give Oscars a view. They're really struggling, so give them a view. Oh, you know what? I just realized the Tim Heidecker and Greg Turkington on Cinema at the Cinema must be doing an Oscar special tonight. Let me check that out. Highnetwork.something. If you've ever watched it, it's, oh wow, is it about to be tonight? Oh my god, of course it is. I need to watch that. I need to pay them money. Why does it say the special is tomorrow? Is that like an outdated thing at the top? I think they mean today. Fix your website, High Network. Okay, you're not seeing this. It's not, well, I could pull this up really easily. Yeah. You go to the High Network. This is not promoted, but I'm just saying it's really funny. Okay. Back to what we were doing, or next thing, actually. Let's go to the word of the WOTW segment. Do I have to then say what it stands for? Or what's the point of shortening it if I have to then say what it stands for? The word of the week segment. Let me have a sip of coffee. You can understand what the word of the week segment is. I don't think I have to explain it. I believe this word temblor was in a book I'm reading. The book is Nothing If Not Critical. It's art criticism, a bunch of articles collected by one writer who I don't remember his name, Robert Hughes maybe. But he is extremely well written, and it's so, well written meaning like sharp and intelligent without being pretentious. And he has like strong opinions about art, and it's really interesting. It's fun to read someone with like strong opinions who still doesn't come off like a know-it-all pretentious person, because that's a hard line to walk, to be critical while being like, I guess, self-critical or like humble at the same time or something. Anyways, how do we pronounce this?
Temblor.
Temblor.
Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor. Temblor.
The WOTW segment also does sort of collide with the music. What's it called? The musical interlude. Anyways, let's get on to the main segment of the. I'm sorry, we're already in the midsection. I forgot to mention that. So. This is the main segment of the midsection. If you didn't see this, there's a lot of news coming out, and Wired is actually doing some great reporting if you don't follow them. They have been, because they actually covered Elon Musk for years because he's obviously been in the tech world. And so they have, a lot of sort of interesting lines of connection here, and they've been reporting on what he's been doing as a special government employee in the new Republican administration. And one thing that you definitely have not heard about in most of the mainstream media is anything related to Myanmar scam compounds where tens of thousands of people are enslaved using Starlink to get online. And now you might think, well, is that really the fault of the person providing them internet access? And it's like, well, it only would be if you consider the fact that these criminal enterprises might not be able to run otherwise. It's not like they don't always have a ton of selections for their Wi-Fi, because of like know your client or whatever. So anyways, you know, we try to not spend too long on things. We try to not go too deep into things. 8 compounds spread around the Mayawadi region of war-torn Myanmar likely to have installed multiple Starlink devices. Photos of Taichung reviewed by Wire appear to show dozens of white Starlink satellite dishes on a single rooftop, while human rights watchdogs and other experts say that Starlink use at the scam compounds has increased in the past year. And you know, this led me down a path of watching videos about pig butchering scams, which are very interesting. Just a certain type of crypto scam. They're called pig butchering because the idea of like fattening up a pig before you kill it, which is obviously kind of disturbing. Sorry, vegans, to not trigger warning that. But you know, it's similar in the sense that like these scammers take a very long time with their victims. Take a very long time to get them to invest in scam websites and steal their money. I mean, Elon Musk's Starlink is installed above all the buildings in the campus where we are now, the individual wrote. Now the fraud work is running normally. If the fraud network here is down, we can regain our freedom. So it's very deep, according to this article, in the sense that their internet connection had been shut off within the Taichung scam compound. Their internet connection had been cut off from Thailand. This whistleblower said to the anti-scam group in June of last year, instead of scamming within the compound grinding to a halt, the organized criminals behind the operation found another way to stay online. They claimed Elon Musk's Starlink is installed above all the buildings. So that's the significance of it. So, you know, I believe that you cannot sit around and ask corporations to be responsible. It's just ridiculous. You don't necessarily like, you can't rely on them to just like be polite or responsible. Like, there's such a thing as accountability, and you enforce boundaries and limitations, and you make it so it's law that companies have know your client regulations and are responsible for who they're supporting. It's not that complicated, you know. Starlink's policies state that SpaceX may terminate services to users if they participate in fraudulent activities. It has previously emailed users in locations it doesn't officially offer services to and threatened to shut down accounts. Support services for trafficking victims have faced U.S. aid funding cuts from Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I think the government serves a lot of positive functions. Like, at the end of the day, without government, the only other option is to have things be privatized. It's not like there's a third option. So, you know, for me, I don't trust government more than corporations. I just do believe, like, free market, the argument is the government is not responsive to, I've had a lot of debates about this. People say the government is not responsive to people's, to the public, because they can, you know, provide a bad service. This is what capitalist supporters, ideologues will say. The government can provide a bad service and still get away with it because they don't need to make profit. And it's interesting because it's not like, there are elements of that point that are worth considering, but the conclusion is strange because you could also argue that there's more accountability in the sense that we have some democratic influence on what happens in the government. So even though so on the one hand, you influence corporations with your money as a customer, and on the other, you influence government organizations, and I should say organizations. So on the one hand, you influence corporate organizations, private corporate organizations with your money, and on the other, you influence public governmental organizations with your some amount of indirect representation, some amount of it. I mean, we live in a liberal democracy still. Like, you have some amount of representation. It's, you know, there are all kinds of different ways we could make it so our elected leaders and our government serve us better, of course, and are more democratic. But there is some effect there. So who's to say that the effect of a customer's dollar is actually more significant? I mean, is it? What if the owners of companies can run at a loss for a really long time? How significant is it? I don't know the answer, but I think it's a worthwhile question and it's interesting. But so personally, yeah, like, are we going to see private corporations go provide HIV treatments like across the world that USAID was helping with? Is that profitable? How do you make a profit doing that? I was thinking the other day about how I used to work at a suicide hotline, and like, that's a completely unprofitable. Like, you have to get paid through grants by the government, which, by the way, I wonder if any of the suicide hotlines have been messed up by this situation. But by this way that the Republican government is like ruining certain functionalities. Mental health agency loses 1 in 10 staffers to Doge cuts. 988 hotline team impacted, from CBS News. Wow. Hold on. Hold on. Wow. More than 10% of the staff working for the Federal Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration were fired this month. They don't call it so-called the Department of Government Efficiency like Wired does. Might be it. I think it's fair to say so-called. I mean, do you literally just have to say what? I mean, are you gonna just call like the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and not say like so-called? You know. The cuts amounted to around 100 probationary workers, multiple current, and there's cool things about North Korea too. I'm not trying to say everything's bad about North Korea. The cuts amounted to around 100 probationary workers, multiple current and former federal health officials told CBS News, and affected multiple teams around the department, ranging from recently hired directors of SAMHSA's regional offices to staff working on projects related to the 988 hotline for people facing mental health crisis, which the agency oversees. So yes, an agency's communication team lost a quarter of their team, and they were a team working on raising awareness about a hotline for people facing mental health crisis. This is just one small example. Look, this is not a profitable field. Tell me how you turn a profit running a 988 hotline. Tell me how you turn a profit running the suicide hotline. Who pays? Who pays you? You're running advertisements while people are on hold? Like, how? You're trying to not have people on hold. The goal is to serve the client effectively. It's a fundamental thing. Delivering mail. It's just not profitable. We pay through our taxes for things that benefit the public. I mean, it's ridiculous. Everyone's benefited by a 988 helpline, whether you call it in your life or not. Anyways, so that's the main. Sorry, that was just a side thing from the main segment of the midsection. So yeah, I mean, just worth considering what the private companies are doing while the leaders of those private companies are involved in a gross dismantling of the organizations that we do have the slightest amount of public effect on. And next up, this is a serious segment, like a lot of the segments. Some are funny. I try not to have it be too much of a jolt, the funny to the serious. But this is serious. It's a grieving, we call it the grieving segment. And we have had the first death from measles, and it is a child in Texas who was unvaccinated because their parents didn't want to get them vaccinated. And they were in a region of Texas that has, I believe, the highest unvaccination rates in Texas, which I'm sure is quite an unvaccinated state. And this is the first time, someone has died from the measles in 10 years. Not because the measles isn't deadly, but because people have been vaccinated. And it is spreading. And it's a highly contagious airborne disease. And 1 in 3 deaths out of every 1,000 reported cases. That's not that low, y'all. That's not that low. That doesn't sound low to me. Keep in mind, and you need to, I'm sorry, this is kind of disturbing, but keep in mind, there are billionaires and very wealthy people who genuinely do want people to die and do think of it as just like thinning the herd. We talked about the Mark Andreessen thing about opioids, opiates in video games, where he has this. I can just show you the quote really quick. There's this quote in this article where he says, "I'm glad there's OxyContin in video games to keep those people quiet," talking about people in small towns and just like normal people. So, just keep in mind, and that's not most people. Most billionaires would never admit that to themselves or even really necessarily feel that way. But anyways, I'm getting way off track. The point is, okay, there was a death from measles. We have a new administration that is not the most pro-vaccine administration, though there's constant gaslighting. What? The organization I ran for many years was against vaccines? Like, prove it again. Anyways, this guy is health secretary. Or whatever. He's a vaccine critic. Reuters is willing to call a spade a spade. He's pledged to protect existing vaccination programs. Let's see how he responds to this. Yeah, parents refusing to vaccinate their children. I think it's a complicated ethical question. It's interesting, too, the way it dovetails with the rights of children. We talk about, this one thing I was talking about on the thing I just posted today, analyzing Michael Knowles being decimated in a debate about LGBTQ plus rights. He obviously doesn't support the rights of trans kids to get a health care that they need. So it's interesting, like the idea of like, why can't a kid consent to getting certain health treatments, especially when they have their parents' consent in almost all the cases and a doctor saying it's a good idea. Who are Republicans to be against that, and what does that say about their worldview that they think they can dictate that? But it is interesting, like when you talk about the rights of children versus when it conflicts with the rights of parents, because in this case, like you're seeing, it's horrible. I mean, do parents really have the right to not vaccinate their kids? Like, that's not a simple decision at all that you could say a parent, okay, how is that not child abuse? How is it not child abuse? I don't understand. Because it's indirect and it takes a little while to harm them? I don't understand. Okay, so I wanted to now go into the next segment, which is, so we're still in the midsection, but this is a segment within the midsection. If this is confusing to you, you'll get the hang of it. The structure of this podcast makes a lot of intuitive sense, but it takes a while for the intuition to kind of kick in sometimes. So anyways, this is the good news segment. We talk about good news because really there is always good news. And you can't just like get sad about the news all the time. You have to interpret things in a way that makes you feel some amount of agency and hope. So appeals court maintains injunction against Trump birthright order. So just a couple of days ago, the appeals court, just another court being like, yeah, dude, this is like for well over a century. The federal government has recognized the birthright citizenship of children born in this country to undocumented or non-permanent immigrants, the appeals court majority said. It said it was hard to overstate the confusion and upheaval that would result from allowing Trump's order to take effect, as it challenged long-standing legal interpretations and practice in ways that could cause chaos. So, yeah, another appeals court last week declined to lift a similar injunction issued by a judge in Seattle. Other judges in Massachusetts and New Hampshire have likewise enjoined the order, finding it violates the U.S. Constitution. So, and that was an order signed on his first day, by the way. That was one of the most important things he had to cover. I mean, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And the people who support him need to wake up. Next up on the good news desk, a little bit different. Yankees are going to allow people to have beards and facial hair. The New York Yankees are allowing facial hair, changing a rule that is over 50 or about 50 years old. Wow. Yeah, this dude's son, George Steinbrenner's son. George is rolling over in his grave. He's dead, right? George Steinbrenner. He died 15 years ago. So it's time to let facial hair and rest in peace, George. I don't mean any disrespect. They're changing the facial hair rule. I mean, a little bit of disrespect because, like, come on, you don't like you can't have. Yeah, I would not be allowed to have this beard. This is probably too messy. I'd have to like freaking trim it even, or something. I don't know, but this is great news for everyone who's a fan of baseball and facial hair. So, which is a lot of people. There's a lot of baseball teams that have people with facial hair, and it's sort of weird that the Yankees don't. It's also weird. I feel like the Yankees are one of the only teams without the last name of the player on their jersey. They just have the number, right? Anyways, good job, Yankees. Next up on the good news desk, Bangladesh and Pakistan resumed direct trade after more than 50 years. So that's kind of cool. Bangladesh has resumed direct trade with Pakistan for the first time since its independence in 1971, with the first shipment of 50 tons of rice leaving Port Qasim under a government-to-government deal. Wow. Rice, bringing people together. Rice is amazing. So thank you, Rice. The deal follows an improvement in diplomatic relations since an interim government in Bangladesh led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus taking over in the wake of the protests that drove the then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina out of the country. Cool. I didn't know too much about this, or anything, really. Previously known as East Pakistan, Bangladesh won independence following a 9-month war. Wow. The new agreement finalized earlier this month sees Bangladesh purchasing white rice from Pakistan at $4.99 per ton. Wow, that's a good deal. I'm getting it at like $6.50 per ton these days. The shipment will be delivered in 2 phases. Wow, oh my gosh. Cool. Whatever. So the price is higher than that of rice from Vietnam. Okay, well, they're your new friends, so deal with it. You know what I mean? The government's been battling to stabilize the rice market as prices have risen by 15 to 20% in recent months, with medium quality rice selling at around 66 cents per kilo. To control rice prices, the government is importing more rice from international markets, including through tenders, and has scrapped import duties. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad rice could bring them together. Good news. I mean, this is sort of complicated. It's not like good news, but like, I think the fact that 21 civil service employees of the, they're resigning. It's sort of so Doge sort of took over. I feel so stupid even calling it that. But, whatever, dude. It's like the dumbest name. And by the way, we're going to have more to say about Doge later. The United States Digital Service. The staffers who resigned worked for what was known as the United States Digital Service, an office established during Obama's administration after the botched rollout of healthcare.gov, the web portal. Yep. And they had senior roles at tech companies like Google and Amazon before. They worked for the U.S. Digital Service. And they said they didn't want to, they said, look, this is crazy to me. The day after Trump's inauguration, so this is 20 senior, or like experienced people that were, working for the government. And then this Elon Musk took over and, incorporated them into his project. And it's a mass resignation of engineers, data scientists, and product managers. And it's only a temporary setback, of course. And in a lot of ways, Musk probably wants the sort of, he wants people to submit to him. But second order goal would be to just have those people who don't submit to him away from him, so other people submit to him. But it's a temporary fix. And I mean, he's gonna see a lot of negative things coming his way, I feel like. Can make this a little bit bigger. So what they said is that the day after Trump's inauguration, they were called into a series of interviews that foreshadowed. So a series of interviews, people wearing White House visitors badges, some of whom would not give their names. The Elon Musk cronies would not even give their names to the government employees that they're interviewing to see if they're good at their job or whatever. You imagine getting interviewed at your job by someone for something and they won't tell you their name? Okay, and they grill them about their qualifications. Someone's grilling you about your qualifications for your job. They're an outsider wearing a visitor's badge, grilling you on your qualifications for your job, and they won't even tell you their name. And they have no qualification for what they're doing. Asked questions about political loyalty, attempted to pit colleagues against each other, and demonstrated limited technical ability. This process created significant security risks. They laid off 40 staffers in the office when they started, dealing a devastating blow to the government's ability to administer and safeguard its own technological footprint. So highly skilled civil servants, you have to be a little bit stupid to think that civil servants are somehow any different or worse than people who work for private companies. It's absurd. It's absurd. But there's been propaganda to demonize federal workers for many years. I'm sure Rush Limbaugh, and you listen to any of these sort of ideologues. Okay. Next up on the good news desk, because it's good news, you want to see this. I mean, there's some people, you don't want to see all the federal workers quit and stuff, but you do want to see maybe some select people this close to it demonstrate that this is huge. They're leaving their job for the U.S. This is a huge deal for the U.S. digital services. They're just leaving their job that they've held. These are serious jobs. Good news. U.S. judge blocks Trump's indefinite suspension of refugee resettlement program. District judge challenged Trump's action, saying that Trump does have a lot of discretion but not limitless authority. Congress has got a framework for refugee admissions, and basically saying the president does not get to dictate everything. He tried to pause refugee resettlement. This is horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. The sudden shutdown meant refugees across the globe had their scheduled travel to the U.S. canceled, including 1,660 Afghans. Do you know what we've done to Afghanistan? Do you know how much we, as a country, owe Afghanistan? Could you even begin to fathom how much we owe Afghanistan? I can't. It's hard to even fathom. Days later, funds for, I don't know how you make amends, you know what I mean? But certainly not canceling trips of that. And by the way, some people, because they worked with the U.S. government, they're at risk in Afghanistan because some people are not hot on the others who help the U.S. government. It's hard for them to make amends to each other in Afghanistan when we won't make amends as outsiders and we further harm them. So, yeah. Days later, funds for U.S. groups that assist refugees already in the country were frozen as part of a larger pause in foreign aid. Wow, even people already in the country. Yeah, it's heartless. It's really heartless. And anyone supporting the administration is very, very, very much supporting this, whether they want to or not. So they need to recommend that. Okay, so next up on Good News Desk, Trump blocked from imposing sweeping federal funding freeze. So this is him being blocked in a lot of different things. U.S. District Judge Ali Khan in Washington wrote that while some funds had become unfrozen, these are funds for trillions of dollars in federal funding for grants, loans, and other financial support. The judge said she agreed with groups representing nonprofits and small business that a preliminary injunction was necessary, blocking a further funding freeze. The OMB, led by the Project 2025 Russell Vought guy, who Trump lied to everyone's face and said that he was not involved in Project 2025. He just lied to your faces if you're a Trump fan. And, I think one of the ideologues even admitted it. But, yeah, it's just, they just lied to your face. And then they were all Trump people in the Project 2025, and they are now. So Russell Vought and the OMB, January 27th issued a memo directing federal agencies to pause spending on federal financial assistance programs. Yeah, Don't even know what to say. Anyways, okay, so cool. Good. We're trying to make some progress here. Minneapolis City Council overrides Mayor Frey's veto on plans for George Floyd Square. So this is in Minneapolis. The mayor, Jacob Frey, who I think has done a bad job, is my understanding. He's trying to impose this change. He wants to keep the intersection open to vehicle traffic, the intersection where George Floyd was killed. And it was a flashpoint for an uprising against police violence and overall white supremacist issues in the United States, talking about making amends. And so, yeah, maybe part of that amends is actually not opening up this intersection to vehicle traffic and maintaining it as a place for people to think about and contemplate the dark history and present of U.S. police violence and racist violence in the United States. So he, and then the city council overrode his veto about it. So that's just great. I think, right? Am I understanding this correctly? A flexible open plan backed by Frey and other city officials would keep the streets open to vehicular traffic. Council voted earlier this month to table that plan. Okay. The person who overrode the veto said that Floyd's family called on her to vote to override the veto. Well, there you go. To them, yeah, great. I mean, absolutely. Oh, these are just the concepts for it? I was more curious what it actually looked like. Oh, is that what it actually looks like? I don't know. Anyways, great. You know what I mean? That we need to have places to think about. I think the largest protest movement in the U.S. potentially ever. That was huge, and we need people to speak up for themselves when they feel like there's a problem in the country. Next up on Good News Desk, U.S. judge halts Trump administration's calls for mass firings by agencies. A California federal judge on Thursday temporarily blocked the Trump administration from ordering U.S. Department of Defense and other agencies to carry out mass firings of thousands of recently hired employees. So yeah, I mean, the district judge said he could not order the DOD, said that OPM could not order the DOD, and other agencies. The judge said he could not tell them not to terminate workers, that were not a part of the lawsuit, but, he suggested that it would cause widespread harm, to fire all these federal workers, including cuts to national parks, scientific research, and services for veterans. The judge said that probationary employees are the lifeblood of our government. They come in at a low level and work their way up. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fact that they're admitting, the fact that it's all probationary employees is so much telling on themselves, because if it shows that they're not deliberately okay, this agency, that agency, give me a break. They're just firing who they think they can get away with numerically. The judge said it was unlikely that virtually every federal agency independently decided to decimate its staff. Yeah, the Trump administration was saying that the memo and email from OPM merely asked agencies to review their probationary workforces and decide who could potentially be terminated, and did not require them to do anything. But the judge said, I don't believe it. How could that all happen with each agency deciding on its own to do something so aberrational? Yeah. So next up on Good News Desk, U.S. judge further blocks Trump's order curbing youth gender-affirming care. So how about this Good News Desk, right? You wouldn't have thought. A federal judge late Friday extended an order blocking U.S. President Trump's Republican administration from withholding federal funding from medical providers in 4 Democratic-led states that provide gender-affirming care to transgender youth under 19. So if you're very ignorant and you haven't thought about the stuff yet, obviously children do need gender-affirming care, because puberty is something that is very difficult for a trans kid in a lot of situations. And that's part of why there's such a thing as puberty blockers. And there's just certain healthcare that trans kids need, and no one can really deny that on any sense of evidence. So there's all, I mean, yeah. So I think it's a lot of misunderstanding, and that comes out as bigotry from a lot of people. But and especially this new administration. And I said this in watching the Michael Knowles Jubilee thing, but like the two parties are not the same. So, I mean, you don't have to be a fan of the Democrats to say the two parties are not the same. This is the Republicans doing this. Next up on the judge and the law is saying actually Trump's order unconstitutionally treated people differently based on their sex or transgender status in violation of the equal protection guarantee of the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment. So, unfortunately, we do have a constitution. Sorry, Republicans, right? We should update the constitution too. Next up on the good news desk, and last up on the good news desk from today, U.S. judge declares Trump's firing of watchdog agency head illegal. So they fired a bunch of people on every level in the government. It's not a good plan, I don't think. Okay. A U.S. judge on Saturday declared President Donald Trump's firing of the head. They got the judges working on the weekends. Declared President Donald Trump's firing, Republican President Donald Trump's firing of the head of a federal watchdog agency illegal in an early test of the scope of presidential power, likely to be decided in the U.S. Supreme Court. Right. Judge Berman Jackson in Washington had ruled that he could stay in his post, and upheld the ruling on Saturday, saying that Trump's ability to fire this Office of Special Counsel would give him a constitutional license to bully officials in the executive branch into doing his will. And it's wild that a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, maybe related to issues with their authority figures in their life or something, they would be like, no, he should be able to bully people. That's what authority does. That's my impression of someone who thinks that. Okay, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like we want these types of positions. Like, it's crazy because, like, what they're doing right now, in some sense, even when they're shrinking the government, what they're doing is almost like big government in a sense. In the sense that they're, like, giving the government more power than it should. And that's why you see the judicial branch trying to restrain it. So it's actually big government by shrinking the government because they're giving themselves the authority to make decisions that they shouldn't have. Okay. So that was the good news segment. I think we all had a great time, right? It is a little uplifting. You know, there's a lot going on. That's good. And you don't just want to sit back and have faith, but you have to look for the good as well. And then think about, what else you're looking for and what could come and what you can do and so on. But okay. So next up we have this thing that I do where it's this Chief Executive Officer segment where we talk about Chief Executive Officers and try to bring some positivity to the community. I think there's been a lot of negativity towards chief executive officers. I think we can all think of some examples of that. So I'm just trying to spread the positivity insofar as it relates to chief executive officers. It's not all bad stuff. When you think of them, it's not all bad stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff about them. Okay, so first up, this is actually good. Ford slashing manager stock bonuses. That's actually good. You know what I mean? Half the middle managers at Ford Motor. I mean, it probably should be the upper managers now that we mention it. You know what I mean? But the chief executive officer, Jim Farley's latest attempt to cut the automaker's bloated costs. Stock awards are usually paid in March. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I wonder, though, why they didn't do the upper managers. But it's better than the lower managers and the employees. Their stocks slipped 23%. Okay. Cool. So interesting. And next up on the chief executive officer desk, U.S. Senate confirms Cantor Fitzgerald Lutnick to head Commerce Department. Now, you have seen this guy in the last week. Just acting in really the most pathetic, disgusting, despicable, cowardly, kowtowing manner around the Republican president, Donald Trump. And really, if I knew this guy personally, like, I would just be like, I would call him up and be like, dude, I have no respect for you. Have a good day. He was confirmed, obviously, because we live in a one-party sort of dominated situation right now. And, so very important agency, the Commerce Department, of course. And, I just like to see some good chief executive officer representation. I'm sorry, the thing about not respecting him, I forgot he was a chief executive officer when I said that. I was thinking about his association with the government. I would never disrespect a chief executive officer. He's worth $1.5 billion, which makes him a sort of man of the people. He's going to think about changing restrictions on firearms exports. Wow. And he's seeking to renegotiate CHIPS awards. Okay. Yeah, he just looked like such a fool in one of those cabinet meetings. Okay. Anyways, but I'm sure he was a good guy as a chief executive officer. Next up on chief executive officer desks, Starbucks to cut 1,100 corporate roles in CEO Nichols. I'm sorry, I said CEO. I try to say chief executive officer because I feel like CEO is sort of like a offensive kind of shorthand. But Starbucks said on Monday it would but I mess up sometimes. You know what I mean? It's eliminating 1,100 corporate roles. That's sort of similar to the middle managers thing, no? Removing layers, blah, blah, blah. The coffee chain has been battling weak demand for its higher-priced beverages. Fire all those people and then encourage all your stores to unionize, and maybe you'll get a better reputation. You know what I mean? But I don't mean to criticize you, Brian Nickel. Okay, next up on Chief Executive Officer desk, Stellantis faces brand's dilemma as it searches for a new Chief Executive Officer. Stellantis operates 14 brands. They're trying to find a new, I don't even know what this company is. Automaker. Okay. Could have fooled me. Former chief executive officer said traditional automakers faced a Darwinian era where the weakest could fail. The new chief executive officer must be ready to take strong decisions. That means fire people. Cool. Great. So good job to Stellantis chairman. And good luck with the search for chief executive officers. You will find the right one if you look within yourself, deep within your soul, and go from there. That's my advice. Next up on chief executive officer desk, Unilever's board unified in decision to oust chief executive officer Shoemaker, sources. So sometimes chief executive officers do get ousted. That's one thing I don't love to see, but, they'll have another, I hope. Includes billionaire, activist, investor Nelson Peltz was unified in its decision to oust Chief Executive Officer Heinz Shoemaker. It was a surprise move, replace Shoemaker with Finance Chief Fernando Fernandez. It's a cool name. Was because of the view that he was the right man to accelerate the group's turnaround strategy. Okay, well, some chief executive officers just don't get the luck of the draw, Sudden departure after less than 2 years in the job hit Unilever's shares, which fell as much as 3.4. Okay, well. Yeah, I don't, whatever. Who knows? Next up on chief executive officer desk, Lucid CEO steps down. Chief executive officer, I'm sorry. It's like they write it, so I have to say it, but it feels like offensive. Okay. Steps down. Company expects to more than double vehicle production. So it's trade. Sometimes they step down when things are going okay, Vehicle maker Lucid Group, electric vehicle maker, I didn't even know about them, on Tuesday that their chief executive officer for over 5 years is stepping down. and forecast its vehicle. Oh, they released that. That's what we call a sandwich, a good news sandwich, and forecast its vehicle production will more than double this year. So the shares go up in 10%. They drop the chief executive officer and say that their production is going to double. But they're going to have the operating chief take over, so no worries about that. Next up on chief executive officer desk. Okay, this is interesting. I think I heard this referenced on like Majority Report, and I was like, what? So the concept is, this is stupid, and they're not actually going to do this. I just thought it was funny. Like, but they, like Elon Musk, the richest guy who's like leading this destructive targeting of accountable civil servants in the federal government. Him and Donald Trump, they float these ideas to get a media cycle and stuff. And so they say something, well, send a stimulus check. We'll give send money to Americans, which is obviously a good thing to do. Also just an easy thing to say that's popular, obviously. And we'll see how it goes. Go ahead and do it. Does not justify any of what they're doing. They're not even saving that much money. The whole federal workforce itself is like 4% of the U.S. federal budget. So it's like really not that much money that they're saving at all. And they're not going to cut defense spending in any way to the top line. So it's... anyways, so it is interesting that the person, I actually don't even... This is so stupid. I don't know. It was just like someone tweeted it or something. Is that what happened? Is it like, I don't even, but I don't even, this is so, I don't care anymore. Okay. Next up on the chief executive officer desk okay. So Jeff Bezos, another one of the richest people in the world, this is the biggest chief executive officer news. And I'm sorry for waiting this long. He came out this past week and said the Washington Post, the organization that I bought, the media outlet that I bought, and that I definitely said that I wasn't going to influence the politics of, I've decided to make the opinion section entirely my opinions. We're going to be writing in support of personal liberties and free markets. And it's kind of good in a way, because now it sucks for everyone who works at Washington Post. That sucks for you. But you just, like, what can you do? I mean, and then they were like trying to have the slightest integrity, but like, the editor left when he made this change. The opinion editor left. Decided to step away. So, but a chief executive officer does things like this sometimes. They inflict their will upon their organization. So, it is good in the sense that you can't really now reference the Washington Post. It's clear now that the Washington Post is biased. It's always been clear, but now it's like even more clear. So, I read Reuters personally. You can tell all the Reuters articles I pull up, but Associated Press is good too. I mean, you can read any source. You know what I mean? I don't want to quibble about sources. You can read any source if you know how to read critically, and you know what constitutes evidence and what doesn't, and what constitutes a claim, what constitutes an assertion, and how to investigate those. It's not a big deal, but you'll find some sources are more forthright with their evidence than others. Some tell you where they get their statements, and some use words like claim rather than just taking the opinion of the people claiming things and so on. So anyways, Jeff Bezos is like, there's really not enough representation. Like, he actually was like, it's not the place for other views. Like, other places can talk about other views. Here's another article on it. So I mean, yeah, they already had a wave of resignations and thousands of subscription cancellations when he didn't endorse the person running against Trump after, like, seemingly what the whole democracy dies in darkness thing was. I thought it was sort of in reference to Trump's first administration, but I mean, he owns it. I definitely don't think that one person should be allowed to have ownership of a media outlet as big as Washington Post. I don't. That's absolutely not. It should be democratic. This is ridiculous. But it's just at the end of the day, okay, now people will not read the post. So, okay, I mean, it's just, but people get, I'm not against, let me be clear. I'm not against a media outlet having a biased opinion section that's openly biased. That is freedom of speech. I'm against if that was decided in a democratic way by the Washington Post, fair enough. I'm against the pain and suffering caused by one person being able to decide these things, But anyways, he's a chief executive officer, so he gets to do what he wants. And we have one more thing to talk about on chief executive officer desk. It's a little bit not the best news. Sometimes I try to bring an uplifting, positive vibe to chief executive officers and the chief executive officer community, but it is true that sometimes there is some not so great news. Okay, so just be prepared. So someone did fire a weapon through the home of a Oregon workers' compensation insurance company chief executive officer. So you might have heard about this. This is a couple of weeks ago. This is a nonprofit workers' compensation insurance company. So you wonder, was it someone who didn't get their workers' compensation claim approved, or what the heck is going on here? And it's a chief executive officer. Was it inspired by the old Luigi Meister? Which is I call him that to be formal. But there is, so this is what, you see this, like you do see people be influenced by other people's actions. I mean, obviously you see it in all different types of, violent actions. So, and I think people should not shoot guns through other people's houses. Personally, I just wanted to say that. I think that's a bad thing to do. I think it's good to just not even own a gun or shoot a gun. That would be sort of my advice generally, unless you're like needing to defend yourself in a genuine way. But you need to be super self-critical about that assessment, in my opinion. And I've never held a gun or shot a gun. But if you have, that's cool. I'm not against it. I'm just saying I don't think it's good to like necessarily have arms unless you need to defend yourself. And don't shoot through people's houses. That's not defending yourself. You know what I mean? So, social media post on Nextdoor that claims to be written by a resident at their address. What address? Oh. At the chief executive officer's address, said the house was shot at around 4 a.m. with 3 bullets going through windows in the home's front door. The post goes on to say that a witness saw a person dressed in black and wearing a ski mask running from the scene after the shooting. I don't know if they found them. Did they? I don't know if they found them. Yeah, I think an article from a day ago says that the person's still on the run because they were... that's them, and that seems like all they have of them, so, tough to find someone like that. Okay, so, very, very cool. I'm glad we could bring some, I'm sorry about the last article being a bit more negative. Hopefully the other ones were more uplifting. That wasn't the most uplifting one, but, anyways, just chief executive officers, they're people too, and they, deserve all the love in the world. All right, so before we go on to the next segment, just thanks for still watching. If you're enjoying this, feel free to give me money, $1 or $2 a month, or $1 million if you're, rich. On Patreon, YouTube members, you can watch all the old episodes and all the future ones that are not public. So I have fun here, so if you enjoy it, feel free to enjoy more of it, or just check out the episodes on the public page, the Verbal Journal page. So anyways, let's get on to the next segment. The next one is, it's important. We need to talk about this. Okay. This is the Everybody Makes Mistakes segment. So everybody makes mistakes, and I try to highlight that because I think it's true, and we all need to understand that everyone makes mistakes. So sometimes you fire people who are working on helping the public not succumb to a flu epidemic that could erupt. Avian flu outbreak, H5N1 avian flu outbreak. But the Republican Trump administration terminated 1,165 workers at the National Institutes of Health, and media reported some cuts at the Food and Drug Administration as well. Wow. And the CDC, of course. So this is days before the first death from measles, by the way. But yeah, I mean, we have things like the H5N1 flu. But they did try to rehire some of the people that they fired, so that's cool, you know. And yeah, everybody does make mistakes. Like sometimes you're an ICE prosecutor, and you end up running a white supremacist Twitter account. An account with over 17,000 followers, had been making posts for a while, kind of making it clear that they worked for immigrations and customs enforcement. It turns out they did. You know, they really did. It was apparently a 44-year-old who's an assistant chief counsel for immigrations and customs enforcement in the Dallas area, and represents ICE in immigration court hearings, where judges decide whether an individual is removed from the country. So this person having a very serious impact on people's lives had posted things like, America is a white nation, our country should favor us. He just saying the most disgusting things. Calling himself a fascist, by the way. And this is we're not trying to find the bad apple. The point is, obviously, he's just saying what they're all thinking. And it's just important to understand that this is what's going on. It's not hidden. Immigrations and customs enforcement that's fascist. If you ask the biggest difference between the right and the left wing, I would say immigration. Frankly, I would say immigration. And by left wing, I don't mean Democrats. Actual left wing people do not believe in criminalizing people for wanting to immigrate. I mean, it's just there's so many ways you can handle immigration. You don't need to have necessarily completely open borders, even though if you want to have open borders for money, like with crypto, it sort of is strange to not have open borders with people. But I think you should just have open borders, honestly. I think people should be able to live wherever they want and have rights wherever they go. I think that's the best outcome for everyone. But but people like this, I don't know what happened with him. Is he still working? Should I look for an update? The Border Patrol's parent agency declined to confirm this guy's prior employment and denied a public records request citing privacy and national security concerns. There's a lot of evidence, a lot of biographical details. I'm not going to go into it. You can read the article. That's the guy, by the way. So James Rudden. This is the reporter who took that photo. Yeah, I don't know whether he's been fired. But yeah, there's been a legal complaint filed against him. So seems, I guess we'll see what happens. Because here I'm looking at a CBS article. A complaint was filed with the Office of Disciplinary Counsel in Washington, D.C., where Rodden was licensed to practice, and with the Office of Professional Responsibility for ICE. Good. There needs to be accountability. They're investigating probably. I don't know that it's... I mean, they'll make an example out of him maybe, but it's obviously pervasive. So everyone does make mistakes though, so maybe his posts were just mistakes, you know? And everyone makes mistakes. Like sometimes BP decides their renewable goals were actually a mistake. And they need to return to fossil fuels even more so than they currently are. So, everyone makes mistakes and sometimes has to change their course a little bit. They're going to scrap that target to increase renewable generation 20-fold by 2030, which, by the way, is kind of not even like it's a great target, but like we need every company to be doing so much. We need to stop the damage because you can't reverse a lot of this necessarily. And you notice how all of these capitalists think that you can, even though we're not. Yeah, so they made a mistake. It's going to drop the targets. And, they weren't even meeting their targets, really. But this is... Major companies are shifting their portfolios in response to the need to lower carbon emissions and curb climate energy, have returned the focus to oil and gas, where returns have become easier and fossil fuel prices have rebounded from pandemic lows. Also, obviously, the Republican President Trump being elected, an advocate of fossil fuels, because he's going to die soon, and he doesn't care. His family will be rich. Pressure has become intense on BP after activist investor Elliott Investment Management built up a nearly a 5% stake. Elliott, known for pushing changes at companies such as Honeywell and Southwest Airlines, is demanding an overhaul, including tighter cost discipline. Yeah. Cool. Okay, but everyone makes mistakes. Also, someone accidentally posted a video of, U.S. President Donald Trump licking tech billionaire Elon Musk's toes briefly, and at the office of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as staff returned to work on Monday. Sure, someone made a mistake and posted this. Sure. Is it accurate? Is it symbolically, you could say, yeah. Symbolically, you could say maybe it is, yeah. But symbols don't, necessarily always make it. So sometimes they had to shut it down, I think. But also, everyone makes mistakes. Speaking of oligarch Elon Musk, I just thought this was beautiful. 5 years ago, he introduced his truck he was so proud of. And it was so awesome, and it went super well. And I just wanted to kind of relive that together.
Franz, could you try to break this glass, please?
So yeah, it's just a beautiful moment where you really get to see competence at play and what it means to be successful. Truly successful.
Yeah. Oh my fucking god. Well,
no, I'm sorry. Right. No, this is the everyone makes mistakes segment. It was not successful, right? That is not what you want to happen during your test and unveiling of your stupid truck for people with serious defensive issues.
Well, maybe that was a little too hard. Should we try them? Sorry? Okay.
This is such an awkward moment, and I love that this happens.
It didn't go through, so that's a plus side. Let's try the right. Try that one, really? Okay. Sure.
So they try another one. Musk goes, really? Sure.
Oh, man.
That when they got off stage, Musk was like, why'd you throw the second one? But yeah, everyone does make mistakes, though, so you got to keep that in mind. You know what I mean? So here's everyone makes mistakes. Sometimes, people who are major actors post online saying extremely hurtful and bigoted things. She's still going to go to the Oscars, even though she's not been promoting stuff. They found these Spanish language posts dating from 2016 to 2020, so that's ages ago. She made a mistake. But she did say very Islamophobic things, anti-Islam things, I should say. I was saying the other day, it's weird that we don't say like Jewophobic, but we say Islamophobic, Judeophobic, but not Islamophobic. It's weird that the way suffixes and prefixes can sort of shift our sense of things. So just say anti-Islam. Oh, wow. And so just super hateful person. Anyone pushing this sort of rhetoric is really, really needs take a long look in the mirror, which you do see, unfortunately, on the internet. So, it was a mistake. But I don't know who this person is. I didn't see her movie or whatever. And everyone makes mistakes. Sometimes the president's helicopter disrupts, a bunch of flights. 10 flights were diverted to other airports, and more than a dozen were held during a 38-minute period. I'd rather have my flight held. Could you imagine you're flying, and then because the president is flying his helicopter, you have to now end up at a different airport than what you expected and make your way to where you're going? That's so annoying. And what I found really funny, I'm not going to dive deep into this, but apparently there's just this new thing, recent rules barring flights during presidential helicopter trips after this recent horrible deadly collision of an Army helicopter with an American Airlines jet that killed 67 people in the U.S. It was horrible. And this is during Trump's administration, and as they're cutting funding to the FAA and firing people, which we'll talk more about. But it just seems like they adopted new rules specifically about the Marine One helicopter. So he made it so that no one can fly at all to the airport when he's flying in, which is just overcompensation. It's just what we need is just better regulation all around, better safety regulations all around, probably less busy flight channels or whatever all around. But we maybe don't need to bar all flights when the president's flying. But yeah, I think barring all helicopter flights near, certain airports would probably make total sense. Yeah. But yeah, could you imagine? Wow, that's so annoying to have to go to a different airport. But yeah, and that recent collision and the fatal collision was at one of the busiest airports, right? Yeah. Or no, it's not they're talking about two very close by airports in Washington and Virginia. Okay, so this is just, he made a mistake, right? He didn't mean to disrupt all your flights. It was just a mistake. So, okay, next up we have a different type of segment. Let me close some windows, because everyone does make mistakes. But the good sort of thing about that is that everyone can change also. People can change. Agencies can change. Agencies can say, actually, we're going to not work with Verizon. We're instead going to work with Starlink, the company owned by the billionaire oligarch who is now a special government employee. So people can change and agencies can change. And U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, wow, is close to canceling a $2.4 billion contract awarded to Verizon to overhaul a communication system and awarding the work to Elon Musk's Starlink, the Washington Post reported on Wednesday. So we'll see how that goes. That seems kind of corrupt. Even without the context of him firing people at the FAA, that seems corrupt. But yeah, people can change and agencies can change. Everyone makes mistakes, but they can change. And also, the next segment is in a similar vein, though, but sometimes it's hard to forgive. Even though people can change. The Supreme Court doesn't want forgiveness. This is 2 years ago. Why do I have I definitely did not mean to have a 2-year-old Supreme Court article. Right? That seems like my staff here at the podcast sometimes messes things up. I guess it's a 2-year-old article, a 1.5-year-old article. No, it's not. Why does it say that? That's confusing because, look here. This is a Center for Public Policy. Federal court strikes down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. So this is just recent news. I don't know what happened there. But in a sweeping legal defeat for the former Biden administration, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit ruled that the administration's student loan forgiveness efforts were unconstitutional. The ruling effectively declares illegal the vast majority of the $188.8 billion in loan forgiveness granted to the 5.3 million people. This decision comes after the U.S. Supreme Court 2023 ruling in Biden versus Nebraska, which struck down an earlier $430 billion forgiveness plan. So a lot of the courts are saying, we don't like forgiveness. We're the courts. We're not about forgiveness. So that's the Sometimes It's Hard to Forgive segment, which is new, by the way. And next up, we have the Sometimes It's Not Hard to Forgive segment. After this recent mishap where the special government employee, billionaire oligarch Elon Musk's company that he owns, SpaceX, had a vehicle explode and cause, minutes after launching, sending debris streaking over the Northern Caribbean and forcing airlines to divert dozens of flights. So these billionaires sometimes like diverting flights. They're like, they have this force field where they have so much power they get to divert flights. They're thinking about it that way. The FAA is sort of just saying, no, for sure, like, go for it, bro. Last year, Musk did call for the resignation of FAA Administrator Mike Whitaker, who did step down when Musk's candidate he gave $250 billion more dollars to took office. So this seems corrupt to me, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, FAA saying, hey, we forgive, no worries. SpaceX, you're good. I mean, that was a month ago, they're saying, like, don't even worry about it. You had it explode immediately and it, could have hit another flight and it diverted them, but it didn't, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it sent debris streaking over the Northern Caribbean, but, like, you make a mistake, you live and learn. It's not, you know what I mean? So, good for the FAA, and I'm sure they don't feel pressured into that decision at all. Also sometimes it's not hard to forgive in this sense. The SEC halts fraud prosecution of Chinese crypto person whose purchases enriched Trump. So I couldn't find, a better source. There weren't, Mother Jones is reliable. It's obviously biased, but you can, check things. So Justin Sun, who purchased $30 million in crypto tokens from World Liberty Financial, which we've talked about, a venture backed by Republican President Donald Trump and his family. So Trump benefits financially from this crypto token. This guy paid $30 million into, and then a federal judge just now granted the Federal Agency Security and Exchange Commission's request to stop prosecuting him. So that seems fraudulent. But hey, forgiveness is good. Now, next up is the fatherhood segment. We were following up on when we talked about the kayaker who survived being swallowed while his dad was recording him. Oh, nice. I didn't see it zoomed in. That's a great shot. I didn't know he was an adult. I thought because he was with his dad, I just assumed he was a kid. But obviously adults hang out with their dads too. So he was 24 years old, briefly swallowed by a humpback whale. And his dad did what any dad would do, which is keep filming. Do not even stop filming for a second. I just thought this guy's firsthand experience of being swallowed by a whale and spit back out was just so crazy. It was like 1 second of that strange feeling where I felt I was already eaten by some kind of giant fish. But then I started to feel my water vest that was pulling me outside of the water. And there was 2 seconds until I got to the surface. He said he guessed that was the case, that he was inside a whale's mouth, but I didn't know it was a whale. There was just a second, but it felt like more time. Okay, so interesting. The pair also discussed Dell's decision to use his 360-degree camera at just the right moment. Yeah, I don't see the dad explaining why he filmed on a Steadicam. and didn't stop filming. But anyways, Fatherhood is complicated. That's the end of the midsection, by the way. That was all the midsection. Let's close some windows. That was all the midsection. And now we're going on into the main section. So, again, this should all be intuitive. Okay, main section. Webb telescope observes violence around Milky Way's central black hole. So there's not enough focus on the violence in the galaxy, in the outer space. And I think we should focus on that. James Webb Space Telescope providing the best look yet at the chaotic events unfolding around the supermassive black hole at the center of our Milky Way galaxy. Steady flickering of light punctuated by occasional bright flares. This is an artist's concept, by the way. That's not a real photo. We're not ready to see what it looks like. But there are these occasional flares, and there are these... the flickering appears to be emanating from material very close to the event horizon, the point of no return beyond which everything, stars, planets, gas, dust, and all forms of electromagnetic radiation gets dragged into oblivion. So, wow. You know, I think we all heard about that. And so that's the main section. I try not to make the main section too long. In general, I try to keep the main section nice and short. But, blobs of gas are bumping into one another is important. And that's one more thing I wanted to highlight there. All right, so next up we have, this is fun. So this is the data segment, and we talk about, this is important to talk about some data, the 1 day view. Let's look at the 1 month view. Let's look at the 1 year view. Okay, so the data segment is going to be cool. This is a kind of new thing. We've obviously had data in the past. We talked about data a lot last episode. But this data segment is not affiliated with anyone. It's not affiliated with our past employee, Reginald, the data guy. I've thought about it more, and I get that it's weird to do a whole episode about past employee, the data guy, Reginald. But he just meant a lot to all of us here at the podcast. But anyways, this is not affiliated with him. This is just a data segment. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I like data, and it wasn't all Reginald. You know what I mean? So... this might not make sense to you if you're public and you're like, what the heck is he talking about? But, you got to watch you got to see. But anyways, I get it. I'm into data. Let's just talk about numbers for a second. I don't know if people realized this. Like, do you realize this? Like, so it went from, 0.1. So it was like 0.1 during the election. And then when the guy that the leader of this coin... donated, paid $250 billion or more dollars into the Republican candidate's campaign. Republican wins. Price doubles, more than doubles. And then coming up on the inauguration drops. People are like, but no, it's still cool. No, but it's still cool. And then after the inauguration, it has almost halved. 0.24. Wait. Yeah, 0.24 at the inauguration. I'm sorry. What am I talking about? 0.39. Yeah, I'm sorry. 0.41 to 0.23. Yeah, it's basically half. Okay, so it's just interesting. Everyone's got their meme coin. We talked about World Liberty Financial. There's also the Trump coin. We could look at the Trump coin price. And again, this is a Republican presidential candidate having zero problems with... hold on, I'm just making sure. Yeah, is that the coin? It's fight. Okay. Having zero problem with releasing a crypto coin and giving people something with no value but to invest in them. Released right before the election, right before the inauguration, I guess. I'm not seeing any data from before... that, but just if we look from the inauguration, it went from $74 to $15. That's a huge drop, y'all. And in the last month since the inauguration, it's gone down 25%. You know what else has gone down about 25% in the last month? By the way, just on a similar subject, Tesla stock. So. Tough out there for people trying to overthrow the government. Okay, brief follow-up on the previous episode, new segment. I was just like, what was I talking about when I said 2009 here? Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on. Because I think, okay, what was I talking about? It was 2009.
And I believe, or even earlier, 2009.
Wait, hold on.
And like, there have been a lot of, there was obviously this horrible plane crash that killed a lot of people. The worst plane crash since 9/11, I believe, or even earlier, 2009.
Okay, 2009 is not earlier than 9/11. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. That was a misspeaking. 2009 is since 9/11. So this was the worst fatal plane crash since February 12th, 2009, the one that happened on January 29th. So in the US. So it's just whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, anyways. Okay. I don't know why I'm talking about this. I just hate when I say something that could sound wrong. That makes me so mad. So next up, let's talk about politics for a second. We haven't talked about politics much. I wanted to have the politics desk segment. So this is a politics. We're going to talk about politics finally. U.S. judge rejects Republican-led challenge to Biden-era equity. What is it? Environmental, social, and corporate governance investing rule. So a federal judge in Texas on Friday upheld a rule adopted during Biden's tenure that allows socially conscious investing by employee retirement plans. Allows. Doesn't mandate it. Allows it. For people who are capitalists in their ideology, they're like, no, I don't even think a company should be allowed to invest based on socially conscious principles because it's not putting financial profit as the first priority, and that should be illegal. It is literally illegal to not focus on profit sometimes. That's the world we live in. You think it's the free market? That's the government supporting capitalism. It's not a free market. Okay. The judge rejected arguments by 26 Republican-led states, or this should be the good news desk, oil drilling company Liberty Energy, and an oil and gas trade group that the rule was inconsistent with federal law. I believe we did talk about this months ago, actually, maybe in the process. The judge was appointed by Trump, the Texas judge, and just said, rejected their arguments and said, the rule is not contrary to another law. The arguments, okay, that's kind of deep legal theory. But it allows 401k and other plans to consider environmental and social. Look at this. Between two or more financially equal investment options. They're not prioritizing these socially conscious principles over profit. They're just considering it when profit is equal. That's what we're dealing with in terms of the legal system supporting capitalism. That it's illegal to make to not focus on profit sometimes. But hey, we're working on it. A Texas judge appointed by Trump says corporations are allowed to think about their freaking impacts on things. Okay. Or the impacts of companies that they're investing in and their 401ks or, whatever. Okay, there's a lot of things to understand here. Next up on the politics desk segment, the big political news is the meeting of the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky with Republican President Donald Trump and Vice President, his lapdog, J.D. Vance, in the administration. And as everyone knows, it developed into a shouting match. It was very unproductive.
Office and he refused to wear. We have tremendous death as Europe. With that being said, and as you said,
I do think that under the president's leadership, we're going to find common ground.
I mean, keep in mind the context. I'm not going to go into it, but like Trump's been he called this guy a dictator like a week and a half ago. Like he pushed for, like, the U.S. didn't support UN resolutions in the last week saying that Russia started the war. He said Ukraine started the war, Trump, and then he walked it back. Like, he's literally just, like, been an antagonist.
I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe.
I signed with him, Macron. You will feel it in the future.
Oh, this is the moment. So this is the moment. This is very interesting. This is the moment it explodes, and I wanted to watch this really quick.
The destruction of your country.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean, and don't feel
So he's responding basically to Vance saying a lot of incoherent things, but sort of you can tell he's responding basically to the idea that like Vance was saying like your country's in a horrible position. Don't you think you should just like completely kowtow to us and do whatever we say? Why is Trump's tie so long? Okay, anyways, watch this moment that Trump really gets upset and insecure.
everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will
Don't-
not
you
have
gotta-
war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're
doing. I'm not
You're
dictating.
in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel
you
very
will
good.
feel
We're gonna feel very good. Like this is you're seeing this like real moment. I think like Trump. Like there's a real psychological moment of like this is the foundation of who he is that he doesn't want to think, he wants to be in denial, and so he wants to just believe he will feel good in the future. That is the basis for everything he does, that he wants to feel good in the future. Like he wants to, not even that he wants to feel good in the future because everyone does, he wants to not think about the future is what I'm trying to say. And then just believe that he'll feel good without thinking through how that might come to pass. And Zelensky, and it's funny, he feels threatened by Zelensky's comments. Zelensky's not trying to like say, we're going to attack you. He's just saying, look, America could suffer in a war just like anyone. It's true. But that is I have to say, it's not disrespectful, but it's a little bit challenging. It's like a little bit like assertive. I respect it, frankly, to be assertive in that way. But it's funny that that's the moment it all gets heated.
influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Graham,
position.
I was
You don't have the
saying
cards right now.
That's a wild thing. I mean, look, it's not okay what Russia's done to Ukraine. It's not okay. It's not justified by NATO's actions. It's not okay. It's imperialism. You can't just take over areas. If those people want to be part of Russia, cool. Let them vote under a non-influenced election, under a free and fair, internationally observed election or whatever. It's not maybe an election. It's some other voting. But I don't. People can have self-determination, but you don't drop bombs on a place to give them that self-determination. Next up on the politics desk segment, FDA staff reviewing Musk's Neuralink were included in the firings, people reviewing one of his companies. But then, again, this should be the everyone makes mistakes segment, because then the FDA tried to hire some of them back. So that's cool. They were saying, hey, maybe we will continue investigating the company of the special government employee, even though he's firing thousands of people, tens of thousands of people across the country. This pissed me off. This is like such a good thing that he did, and it's so insane that like Republicans get to do this stuff because Democrats are so inept and incompetent. I mean, I didn't read all the writing on this. I just sort of read one article on it, but it sounds like such an obvious thing to do. Obviously, like health insurers and hospitals should have to disclose healthcare cost details. And they should have to post their negotiated rates with providers and out-of-network payments with providers and all prices and pharmacy benefits. Everything should be completely transparent. And it's opposed by hospital groups who unsuccessfully challenged it in court. And it's just like, yeah, it's so obvious. And we need the more left-wing politicians to be doing stuff like this. Because it's obviously not a right-wing thing to, like, or it's just like a populist thing to do, and then to have him be able to do it is not good. Next up on the politics desk, IRS to close more than 110 offices with taxpayer assistance centers. So these are free taxpayer assistance centers. So they laid off about 7,000. I think they've done more since, but 7,000 people at the IRS, huge amount of people. And at least 113 taxpayer assistance centers will have their leases terminated or not renewed. They provide free in-person help for tax filers on an appointment basis. Wow. So if if you wanted some free help with your taxes this tax season, you have the Republican administration to thank for having way less access to that. Next up on let's just a few more things about the FAA. They fired about 400 workers. And they fired about 400 workers, including Trump administration sent air traffic controllers buyout offers, but later said they were not eligible. Also, because that is a bad look to get rid of air traffic controllers. For people who are stupid, they might think that air traffic controllers are the only people involved in safety, so you don't want to fire them. And you can get away with firing other people, other safety officials, including TSA officers. These are other groups that they made not eligible. Sorry, but they fired other people who are obviously involved in safety, including maintenance mechanics, aeronautical information specialists, aviation safety assistants, and management and program assistants. So the union says that these positions are vital to supporting public safety, but they probably just want to steal money from the government for safety for airlines. Anyways, then there's we already said that. And then there's also the air traffic control for space unit, and there's more and more violence going on in the center of the galaxy, but the Trump administration still fired employees who were building a system to manage satellite traffic in space, weakening a badly needed effort championed by the U.S. space industry. Because, roughly a third of their office was fired, and it's an office that operates air traffic coordination system for satellites in space, which there are a lot of. There are a lot of satellites in space. People say we're not talking about a few dozen per year. We're talking about tens of thousands. It's like a game of chicken up there. So, the FAA cannot even approve satellites if they need a license and don't have it now, and they can't get it from this agency that's now been shut down. So I actually think we should have people whose job it is to promote safety in space. Like, we're going to see more and more things falling out of the sky, unfortunately. So I just, I just hope that what I really hope is that, I talk about accountability. I think it's really important that we understand who is responsible for things that happen. And, so when there are bad things that happen, really ask yourself who is responsible and, stuff like that. Who made these regulations the way they are and why? Okay, we're almost done here. Let's close some windows. Let's get these windows closed. And all right, we're going to finish up here with the art segment. So the art segment is when we talk about art. And here there's some really nice art news. Rare frescoes unearthed in Pompeii shed light on ancient rituals. So the archaeologists have uncovered rare, nearly life-sized frescoes that offer fresh insight into religious practices of the ancient city before it was destroyed by Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. So that was not the fault of government overreach. That was just a mountain being like, I'm gonna explode, So this is a 2,000-year-old fresco. Vivid imagery of Dionysian followers in states of ritualistic ecstasy. Damn, that's dope. So very cool. Next up on the art segment, Metropolitan Museum repatriates ancient bronze griffin head. Is that how you spell griffin? That was stolen from Greek institution. Because England and a lot of countries, but especially England, has stolen a lot of art from us. This is 6th century BC. It's been on public display for 50 plus years, and they decided to give it back to the country that it was stolen from. It was discovered over 100 years ago in southwestern Greece, and was on display in Greece. And then it was stolen in the 1930s and then resurfaced in the 1930s from an antique dealer and sold to someone in New York and questions about its provenance have been raised in the last 5-7 years, and they looked into it and they were like, "Oh, we should give it back, I guess." Did that say it's gonna remain? Whatever, I don't care. Let's just move on. There's so much stolen art to give back. Australia. Oh, this is such a big deal. The Venice Biennale is like a huge deal in the art world. It's like the biggest biennial. I believe it's pronounced Biennale. But it's like these biennial shows every 2 years are like a huge deal and so on for all the big people in the art world. And Australia, every country has like its own presentation at the show. They pick their best artists and so on. And Australia decided to cancel the show of the person Khalid Sabsabi, who was going to be showing at their pavilion, and then canceled it because I believe it was because of support for Palestinians. I'm trying to, sorry, but I thought they were going to say more clearly, but it's like, okay, sorry, I just have to click a link. So just really quick. Yeah. Just to make sure I say this correctly. A severely critical newspaper article. The media. Okay. Sorry. I try to, sometimes I read things before, but sometimes I don't. The stunning reversal, however, the board believes a prolonged and divisive debate about the 2026 selection of outcome poses an unacceptable risk. So what was the problem? Sorry, I'm not seeing. They announced this artist to be representing Australia, and then they changed their mind. Okay, so this organization said the board believes a prolonged and divisive. What are they? Sorry. Oh, okay. Questionable and ambiguous followed the heels of an article published in the Australian newspaper critical of him, which detailed his quote questionable and ambiguous usage of Hassan Nasrallah, the dead Hezbollah leader, in one of his works. Nasrallah was the Secretary General of Hezbollah, a Shia Islamist political party and militia from 1992 until his assassination last year, because he was assassinated by Israel. Because we allow Israel to just do whatever they want. Right? Okay, so yeah, they're so yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to read all the details. It's I believe that artists should be able to incorporate whatever they want in their art, and this is humiliating for Australia, which is not much in a better state than countries like the U.S. But for now, they might be a little bit better. And then next up, this is the last segment before the mailbag. This is the typo segment. So this is kind of a new segment. I think this article had a typo. Crypto trading booms in India, interiors as job growth and incomes disappoint. I just like reading about crypto sometimes. But there was a typo here. Overall, India's crypto market is expected to grow to more than 15 billion in 2035. I'm pretty sure they mean 2025 from 2.5 billion last year. You know what I mean? To grow, I mean, do they mean to grow to more than, I mean, I think that's a typo, right? Let's see if they updated it. Oh, I can't read the article. Can I read the article? I can. Okay, yeah. Hold on, let's see. Let me just search 2035. Yeah, okay. Grow to more than... Oh, wait, no, but is that different? Hold on. Grow to more than 15 billion in 2035. Grow to more than... Oh, no, that's... No, it should be like by 2035. Or is it? Am I misunderstanding this? Okay, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding. It seems like it's a typo, but I could be wrong. Okay, maybe we should cancel the typo segment. That didn't really go well. I thought it would be fun, but this is already a very long episode. I've been trying to do shorter episodes, and I've been failing. Let's check out the mailbag. People write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. And we get a lot of people writing in. Sometimes this takes up the whole episode. No one wrote in this time. Okay, now let me thank the supporters of the channel. You could get your name here, or you could, get some funny name you come up with on Patreon or YouTube memberships by becoming a supporter via any of those processes. So let me thank the YouTube members first and foremost. Thank you, Jacob, Cosmzone, Ramon, Matthew, Eva, Maddie, Ibnomad, 1, Jasmine, Simply Snaps, Jifa, Jaden, Trusty Ghost, Hollow Moon, Pit Inhabitant, and 39% Weird. And over on Patreonus, let me thank the patrons who are currently enjoying all the new stuff I'm putting out along with the YouTube members. Thank you, Jane. Hold on. Let me make sure I got the right thing. Okay, yeah, these are my members. Thank you, Jane, Alexander, Noah, Burrow, Arthur is here, Luna, Alexis, Perpetually Jackson, Bia, JC, Lily, Islac, Caleb, Miranda, Ruben, Ibnomad 1, Oliver, MK, Matt, X, Noah, Anastasios, Linguist, Sam, King, Tom, Verbal Gerbil, Hugh, Redgrove, Elemancy, Platinum Sarge, Rabbit Dog 008, Jen, Roman, Ian, Russ, Irene, MJ, Got45er, Swit, Ryan, Madeline, Mr. Moxie, Brent, Molly, Kyle, Ashley, Jack, Scott, Luca, Gunther, Thulusaurus Rex, Miles, and a user. Thank you all, and I appreciate all the support and the money, and it's really cool and helpful, and I buy food with it and stuff. And okay, I'll see you next week if you're a channel supporter, and I'll do a public episode in like 3 weeks. It won't be this long because, I got a life to live. But thanks so much for enjoying this, and I hope you enjoyed the romp through current events and things that are occurring. So it's sort of a nice thing to do. I like to look at reality sometimes. So thought that would be fun. Okay. Bye.
This is a podcast